Hello and welcome to our newest episode of Two for Chirping. I'm James Coberly and I am joined by Habs Homer.
I'm Jean-Frederic Vachon. As if you weren't a Sharks homer. Come on.
oh, I was just noticing your new background and your jersey maybe. I'm not sure what you're wearing, but
I'm experimenting with something. But, you know, if you go through some of the topics, that people will understand why I'm wearing my jersey today.
what are we talking about? We talking about the Flames today or what's on the agenda?
I think we've beaten that dead horse quite a bit. So we're going to talk about there's a new rule coming into play this year in the NHL about 5 minute majors being more reviewable than they were in the past. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's happening with PK Subban. That finally I have an opportunity to take my jersey out of the closet. Why is he still unsigned? Um, and I think you're still carrying a grudge for my Joe Thornton. Sorry, Joe Thornton might not be a Hall of Famer, so I think you want to bring that back on the topic.
Anything else? I think there's one more thing, isn't there?
Is there? What
Our
else is
hot
there? Oh
take.
yeah, our hot take of the week. It's the centerpiece of the show. So our hot take this week is who's gonna take the Vezina trophy home. This is
Very
really
good.
difficult for me to have one word that I want to say in French and the other word that I want to say in English. My brain goes really off the rail there. So it's the
You have
Vizina
to think.
Trophy,
Yeah, you have to think. You could say, how do you say it in French?
the Trophy Vizina.
Oh, okay, got you. Just say it in French, and I'll translate for our our English speaking audience.
Trophy. I think people are going to figure that one out.
Vecina, Vecina. So yeah, so I don't have a hockey shirt on today. I am wearing Rio de Janeiro. This is a shirt that my fiance, who actually lives in Rio de Janeiro, gave me, and we'll talk about that some other time. So let's get on to hockey.
So a few years ago, I want to say, actually, I've got the article here, but I think it's in the 2019-2020 season, the NHL introduced a new rule where a referee could go to video replay for a 5 minute major. The options available to the ref were to confirm the call on the ice or to bring the penalty down to a 2 minute minor penalty. And while, of course, the NHL never admits anything like this, but I believe you're intimately familiar with the incident that most likely uh, pushed the NHL to introduce that rule. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I think we should talk about it. So there was a call on the ice in a game of the San Jose Sharks versus the Las Vegas Bandwagoners. I'm sorry, Golden Knights,
Your nemesis?
and Las Vegas gave up four shorthanded goals in 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
it might have been yeah, and
Yeah, four.
and whined about losing
You
the
got to
game.
specify that the Sharks were down 3-0 and went up 4-3 during that major penalty. And Vegas tied it before the end, but the Sharks took it in overtime, and that was a game 7. So that had a big impact on that series.
Yeah, so as I was saying, Las Vegas whined about it, and they always get their way with Gary Bettman. And so they said we're going to change the rule to make the whiners happy. This is how I remember it. I You asked me to explain. I'm explaining, and maybe you remember differently.
No, I remember it pretty much the same way. I kind of remember the NHL even coming right out and saying we made a mistake, which they never do, no matter how egregious the
Right.
errors are.
Yeah, because they
So
had to make Las Vegas happy because you know they're Gary Bettman's favorite. I mean,
if we're going out on a tangent, what about the call? No, did you agree with that 5 minute major?
so I was there at the game, and in real time, I absolutely agreed. Um, and even with some replays, I agreed. It wasn't until a couple days later where you had the super slow motion and the zoomed in and the ultimate, alternate camera angles, so I can see why the referees messed up that call. I'd also say that I forget the exact number, but in it was literally hundreds, maybe even thousands of 5-minute majors. Only twice, that was only the second time ever that the shorthanded team gave up 4 goals. So, I think I'm not going to say it was much ado about nothing. I do believe in retrospect that it was the wrong call. Um, that being said, I think it was
They
made
gave
into
up
a bigger.
4 freaking goals in 5 minutes. Come on, how
Exactly.
hard
Exactly.
is it to play defense?
Exactly. Exactly. And I also think that, some of what I was joking about mostly, but I think there is some truth to, wanting to appease the new team and, and all that stuff. But ultimately, I do think the rule changes are good for hockey because I think it's all about getting the call right. And
Yeah,
that's what's important. Now, to get to the specific new change, which you didn't
yeah,
actually finish saying, I believe the new rule change allows the referee to say there should be no penalty at all. Is that correct?
that is correct. Which is a big
Yeah. So
step for the NHL to sort of allow the referees to say, "Look, the call I made on in the instant was not the right one. Let's forget about it and go back to play."
yeah, so that's interesting to me. We talk about baseball a lot, and baseball recently, I'm going to say the last 10 years, put in instant replay. And in theory, they have the umpires even before the instant replay, I believe, can overturn. Yeah, in fact, they can. They can huddle and overturn their own call. It rarely happens. I also referee soccer, and I know that we can, if we make a mistake, we can correct our call. You don't do it though, and the reason is because it ruins your credibility. And maybe you're not supposed to do this, but maybe you'll give a makeup call. Um, but I just don't see it happening. I don't see a group of referees saying that, oh, we made the wrong call. I just don't see it happening because these are professional referees. If that's that's their that's their that's their profession on the line. That's their job on the line.
But hockey is a fast game, and it's all about positioning. I follow former referee Paul Stewart's blog, and he's always talking about positioning. That is, it's the key to being a good referee and being in the right position. And you're going to be in a position where you're going to make the wrong call. The stick goes up, and you're like, if the player moves their head, it's like, oh well, you obviously hit him, but the replay from a different angle will show that the player didn't hit the other player. These are going to happen. To actually say, we went back, looked at it, and know that was the wrong call. Will that really destroy the credibility?
You know what? I'm not gonna answer your question directly. I'm gonna take a probably an unpopular opinion. I think bad refereeing, bad umpiring, bad officiating is part of the game, and I think it's part of what makes it exciting. Otherwise, let's just have robot refs. Let's just have video replay on maybe not everything, but let's find a way to implement a system where it's done via camera, right? I think if they can do that, I would imagine with the war room in Toronto, they could probably make it just okay, every penalty the guy watching the TV screen is calling it, and he watches a replay first, and it wouldn't slow the game down that much. So
Yeah.
I think the human error is part of it, and as much as I think the Sharks get the short end of the stick on refereeing, that's homerism probably. But
Every fan base will claim their team is getting the short end of the stick
right,
with that.
yeah. So as much as I feel that way, I think that I prefer the human error. I prefer the excitement of rather than having a robot, because then you get into things like, and I know you're not suggesting a robot, but if you want to get everything perfect, so then do you call everything by the letter of the law? Do you say, oh, you know, he hooked him because he gently tapped him with his stick, or that's slashing or what have you, and pretty soon it just becomes a game of all penalties.
Yeah, that's one thing. The NHL rule book cannot be enforced as it is. It would transform the game, completely, because there's an infraction, there's a technical infraction every 5 seconds in a game.
I think you see that in most sports too. So I think that's the fact. I mean, I'm gonna talk about momentarily a sport that I don't particularly enjoy, but NBA basketball. You know, it used to be traveling was 2 steps and it was a travel. Now it's 2 steps, a jump, and a hop step, right? Before they call it travel. So I mean, a hop step and a jump. Um, so yeah, I think if you in most sports, I think baseball being the exception, if you enforce it, and that's because that's a start and stop game. It's not a fluid motion
Yeah,
game like the other ones. I think if you enforce it by the letter of the law, you would be every play would have a penalty, every single play. So
yeah. You mentioned not having robot referee. I think there's one, not infraction, but there's one rule where we're heading in that direction, and it's the offside rule, because now the pucks have chips to track. So
yeah,
pretty soon, I think the offsides are going to be done automatically. But then we're going to be in a position where there was a rush, the puck went in, a millimeter ahead of everything, so the play's off. And
yeah.
is that the spirit of the game? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to see. That's a very good observation. I hate to tell you that, but it is a very good observation. And
I'm going to get over it.
soon enough, I we'll see what happens with that. I also think, okay, it has the chip. Is that going to be real time, or is it going to be something where the situations that I always fear the most, that they cross over a millimeter offside, they score a goal, and then the goal comes out because 2 minutes
Yeah.
later they realize it was offside. So
And I don't think that's the intention of the offside rule. The intention of the rule is that no, you guys can, go and wait for the puck in the attacking zone, not the millimeter thing. If it's a fluid movement, but I hate to see anytime there's an offside and you get to see the referees, with the tablet, and they're sort of moving frame by frame and looking, and oh, is there? Can I see wide in
right,
between? And it's like, oh,
right.
come on, guys. If so, a lot of people have suggested that to get over this, any play that is reviewed through video, there should be a timer of 30 seconds. If you can't figure out that you need to overturn your call in 30 seconds, it's because it was close enough to stand as it was on the ice. What do you think?
So the NFL does this with their instant replay. I think they have a 2-minute time limit, and I believe Major League Baseball does now as well. And I like the idea of having a time limit. You don't want to slow down the game too much. I think it's a fine line between progress and technology helping that, and keeping the excitement and the human aspect. Well, I know our viewers are anxiously awaiting to hear about PK Subban. So we talked a little bit about the free agents and the one
Yeah.
big name free agent. There's a lot of middle level guys, a lot of middle level guys, but the one big name free agent left on the market is PK Subban. And the question is, I guess, why? And I'll go ahead and share my opinion first here.
Go.
PK Subban's not the player he used to be. He's going to want at least a multi-year contract. And is he worth it for what is widely reported? I won't say he's a cancer, but he's a distraction in the locker room. And that's what I would say. And to me, if PK Subban wants to sign with my team and play for the league minimum or something like that, or maybe a couple $1 million, I'll take him. But if he wants 4 year, 5 years, 5 million, 4 million, no way.
Yeah. Has there ever been an elite player who's declined as quickly as PK has? And so I'm dusting off my jersey because I was a big PK fan when he was playing in Montreal, and I wasn't happy with the trade for Weber. And history has proven me way wrong on that. Completely, absolutely wrong on that take. That was a great a great trade for the Habs. But PK was at the top of his game at that moment, and he was traded because of his attitude. The common knowledge, no, not knowledge, common thinking was that he was putting his own brand ahead of the team. So he would show up, for press scrums after the game, wearing a PK hat instead of a Habs hat and things like this. And apparently, it pissed a lot of people. But he was a good player. He was quick. He was dynamic. He was exciting. He could change a game by himself, like this. And they went to the final. The first year he was in Nashville. He sort of screwed it up when he awoke Crosby with his bad breath comment, which was like, "What the fuck is that, man?" But that was pure PK. So you could, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it all went downhill, where they basically gave him away to New Jersey, and New Jersey couldn't wait to walk away from him. So you got a guy who won a Norris, just signed a $9 million contract, and few days before his no compete, not no compete, but no trade clause kicks in, he gets traded, um, and he's never the elite player that he was. Never again.
So, you had a couple things wrapped up there. How can I think of any other players that have fallen off so quickly? Off the top of my head, I do believe it happens. I can only think of one guy off the top of my head, guy by the name of Eric Carlson. Maybe you've heard of him. That's kind of happened with,
That's
but even
true.
he hasn't fallen off that quickly. He still had a good. It's just injuries are getting to him. But I think there are other players that fall off fairly quickly. We just probably aren't thinking about them right now. And you kind of caught me by surprise
Probably.
with that question. I'm not slacking on this
Oh.
one. Yeah. So, you mentioned since you're chirping a little bit, you mentioned that history shows that you were wrong on the Weber PK Subban trade. Is there anything that history has shown you right on? That's my question.
I'm not even gonna dignify this with a remark.
Also, I noticed your Habs sign in the background says gag as the first word. It's got
Yeah.
Habs vertically, and then in the back it says GAG and oboe. Gag. Yeah. So, um,
Let's
I
go,
realize
Habs,
that's
go.
no. It says Habs
No.
gag, and I get it. I
Well, let's
get
let's
it.
get back to
All
Mr.
right.
Subban, but
I'm gonna give
so
you two. I'm gonna put myself in the box for 2 minutes. Go ahead. You got 2 minutes.
okay, perfect. um, a friend of mine, when PK what was at his top, a friend of mine told me, he said, "You know what? I think PK is not going to age well." And I said, "Why do you think so?" And he says, "The reason he's so good is he's quick. He's got that half second where he can beat anybody on the ice. These type of players, when they grow older and they lose that half second, they need to start to play smarter. I think PK's too full of himself to make that transition before it's too late." That's
Uh,
exactly what happened. So Phil, if you're watching, you were fucking right on that one.
I think that's a great observation. I'm letting myself out of the box early here. Uh,
Yeah,
but
scored so you can get back on the ice.
yeah, exactly. No, you didn't score. Um, but I think that's a really good observation. So Phil, whoever you are, I think that is a very very good observation. And he definitely, yeah, he did lose his step. And I think when players do bring a lot, when it's more about physical skills than hockey IQ, they absolutely do have to make that transition. So we're agreeing way too much today. What's our next topic? Next top. Oh, I know what the next topic is. This is the fun
Yeah, I'm
part
pretty
here.
sure you do. Okay.
So so we're gonna revisit some of Jean-Frederic Vachon's Hall of Fame versus Hall of Pretty Good. So I think it would help if I shared my screen here.
You're
I
still mad
think we
about Joe Thornton? Is that it?
see. You think you know what it's about, but you don't. Okay, so if we take a look at the graphic here, we both agree on Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. Definitely,
Yeah.
shoe-in Hall of Famers. They've got their cups, which we talked about. It shouldn't be about, but they do factor in. Um,
Well,
oh,
to be honest, I'm saying that not winning a cup should not be held against a player in these day and age, but winning one, two, or three definitely is something that can be counted for the player.
okay, that's fair. So, I I think we both agree. By the way, I'm seeing this Alex Ovechkin current salary is only 1 million. I did not realize that. So he took a pay cut to try to win. But you've got a guy with 9 Rocket Richards, might pass Gretzky's record. You got a guy who's clearly the top player in the league for several years, probably his entire hockey generation, and clearly we agree they're Hall of Famers. So next thing I
Yeah,
want to show
that's a
you,
no-brainer.
if you get in, so I don't think you're a big analytics guy. We haven't talked too much about this, but this is
Oh, I
what's
like
called a
analytics.
similar. Okay, so these are what are called similarity scores. So they are basically they take player statistics over the course of their careers and they compare them to other players. And as you can see with both Ovi and Crosby here, top to bottom, everybody listed with them is a Hall of Famer except for Yager, who will be if he ever retires, I would imagine.
If he
Oh,
ever retires.
yeah. Actually, with Sidney Crosby, you've got Patrick Kane, who we'll talk about in a moment, and Steven Stamkos as well. So, Stamkos is someone we didn't talk about. I think another show will do it, but that would be an interesting one. You know, is he a clear Hall of Famer? I mean, I have my opinion. I think it's pretty obvious, but we could talk about that. Let's move on. So here are the other guys we talked about. You've got Evgeny Malkin, who I actually agree with you is a Hall of Famer. We both agree on that. Taze, who you think is a Hall of Famer, and I don't. Kane, who I think is a Hall of Famer, and you weren't sure. And Joe Thornton, who you said you weren't sure about, and you just didn't know enough about. So let's
I
talk
did
about
my
that.
research on I did my research on Thornton too, by the way, and I wanted to. So I'm going to derail you a little bit, but I wanted to figure
Okay.
out why I had such a blind spot for Joe Thornton, and
Well, because
his best years are in the early 2000s,
okay,
and these are the years where I wasn't watching a lot of hockey because it was a dead puck era, and I'd grown really tired of the product on the ice, and I was still sore. I lived 30 years in Quebec City, so I was still sore from the Nordiques moving to Colorado. Um, so I missed his best years. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to derail you, but after doing some research, he's a Hall of Famer.
that's good. I'm glad to hear you say that because, as you can see, Joe Thornton has more points than Malkin, who we both agree is a Hall of Famer by almost 400 points more. You know, he's got 1,100 assists, so I think that's the big one.
But
He's
he's
got more.
got almost twice the number of games played too.
Well, I think if having a long career is not a negative thing,
No, no, it's not
so
a negative, but it's going to boost your totals. I know
you talk.
the 1,000 career points is often considered sort of the plateau of respectability. If you play 5 years and reach 1,000 points, you're something we've never seen. If you play 20 years and reach 1,000 points, it's a different thing.
So you're talking about points per game or points per minute or what
Yeah,
have you. And
yeah,
and I agree with you there. I don't have those stats readily available. I would imagine he's got pretty good stats along those
they're
lines,
pretty.
uh,
And
even in
if you
compare.
jump in on what I said, sorry to cut you off, but if you jump in on what I said, he played those years. The years he was the best offensively was during the dead puck era. That's amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm glad you're admitting that history has proven you wrong again on Joe Thornton and everybody else. Where I really had it.
Everybody else.
Little bit of a blanket statement there.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fair. I take back the everybody else because we agree on some. Other than that, where were we? So,
Jonathan Tays.
uh,
So you put up some stats
yes,
um,
let me bring
to
those back
highlight
up.
that Jonathan Tays doesn't have that much of a career year compared to some other players where we thought that were definite Hall of Famers. So I'm gonna correct you if you rewatch the episode. I said I was thinking of Jonathan Tays. I wasn't completely sold on him being a surefire Hall of Famer. Well, he probably is in the existing Hall of Fame, but in my enhanced version of the Hall of Fame, if I was in charge. So I got to say your stats are very interesting, especially the context in which you've showed them. I think in my view, I think Taze is a little bit more visible, probably because he was the captain of those three Stanley Cup teams, and that's why he pops in my head first. But Patrick Kane is an amazing player too. So and if we want to argue who's the better player, uh, Patrick Kane is probably more skilled. But Taze was the captain, so he gets a lot of credit for those three cups.
I
But I'm
can
not convinced,
appreciate
and you've shaken my position.
I can appreciate you backing down. It feels good to be right, especially since I'm supposed to be the slacker on the show. Uh, so Jonathan Tays, if you look at his similarity scores, he's got guys like Henrik Zetterberg, Nicholas Backstrom, Jean Rattay. You know,
Rappel.
they're hot tail. I apologize. You've got some guys that are borderline. Adam Oates, I think, is a Hall of Famer. Actually, he is indeed a Hall of Famer. You know, I don't think Zach Parisi, I don't think Corey Perry, I don't think Henrik Sedin are.
Well, and Rick Settings going in this year.
I don't think they should be. I don't think if we're talking about the Jean-Frederic Hall of Fame that Henrik Sedin makes it. Um, the thing that I noticed though
What
about
about
Malkin,
Daniel?
I don't think either Sedin should be in. If
Yeah, I'm
anything,
just
I
messing
think
with you.
if if anything, I think that they make it because they were twins and their twinning accomplishments. But that's kind of a sideshow act to me. The one thing though that I do notice, Malkin, Thornton, and Patrick Kane. So if you look at their similarity scores, you see I've clicked the links because Kane and Thornton are on Malkin's, and Malkin and Thornton are on Kane's, and Kane is on Thornton's. Malkin is not. But again, similar statistic careers. So as you said, we can kind of let this go. I love
But
winning,
let,
so
let, I'm gonna throw out a number of names, and let's just without any discussion, let's just throw a yay or nay for the Hall of Fame. Okay.
just are we talking our Hall of Fame or the Jean-Frederic Vachon Hall of Fame?
Let's go with the actual Hall of Fame, and if we think they deserve, if they are Hall of Fame players,
Gotcha. Okay, thumbs up or thumbs down?
thumbs up or thumbs down. Yes.
Gotcha.
Carey Price.
Yes.
No.
No. Okay.
Ri- Ryan Miller.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
And only
Okay.
because I looked up his stats. Marc-André Fleury.
Yes.
Yes. Joe Thornton.
Yes.
Yes. Shea Weber.
No.
No.
Oh
Patrick
wow.
Kane.
Yes.
Yes. Jonathan Taze.
No.
I'm going to say yes, but it's way more borderline than it was before.
I get it.
Steven,
Leadership has a point. Leadership does come into play. Go ahead.
and three cups in this era. Steven Stamkos.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Zdeno Chara.
Yes.
It hurts my soul to say this, but yes. And Patrick Marleau.
Yes, as a homer.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to stick to that.
Okay. That's fair. Surprisingly, we agree on most of our picks.
Yeah.
Or maybe not surprisingly. So
No, it's not. I don't think it's surprising. I think any conversation about Hall of Fame, there's so many ways to look at the career of a player and so many ways to compare them to others. I think it's not something that can be done in a vacuum. It's something that needs to be done through discussion, like we're having. And I think it's actually a great exercise. I love doing this. I love
I
being,
think
having my mind changed.
I agree. It was a great exercise. It was interesting for me to actually research the stats and look into them as well. So
Yeah.
that was great. So we've got our hot
I'm
take.
kind of better before we move to the last topic. I'm kind of expecting a lot of my friends to challenge me on why I think Carey Price is not a Hall of Famer, and you think he is.
And how about Shea Weber as well?
Yeah, we can cover that in the next episode.
Although I agree with you on that one. So
Yeah, let's go with the hot take.
and we are talking about the
The Vezina Trophy.
The the Vezina Trophy. I wanted you to say it in French for us. But
Le trophée Vezina. Le trophée
there you go.
Vezina
There you go.
accordé au
So,
meilleur gardien de la ligue.
which is the premier goaltender in the league. You thought you were
Yes.
going to get me on that one. So, yeah, if you're not familiar, the Vezina Trophy, I know there's all these awards and they're named after players instead of just MVP or whatever. So in this case, it's the goaltender of the year, the best goalie in the league, and
Named after Georges Vezina.
named after Georges Vezina. I hope I said that well. And
Yeah, that was pretty good.
we're gonna go ahead and give our hot takes. And by the way, we are going to keep score on our hot takes at the end of at the end of the podcast year. So we'll get back to you with our scorecard, and we'll see who did better. So do you
Yeah.
want to go first?
Well, I just want to run through maybe the last five or six winners. So in 2022, it was Igor Shesterkin from the Rangers. 2020
Yes.
was Marc-André Fleury from the Golden Knights.
Yes.
In 2020, it was Connor Hellebuck from the Jets. In
That was a great.
2019, yeah,
I'm going to
go.
interrupt you for a second. Connor Hellebuck's Vezina season is one of the, I think, most underrated seasons in recent history. He was so good and fairly quiet about it too. So
Absolutely. In
go on.
2019, it was Andrei Vasilevsky from the Lightning. And in 2018, it
Okay.
was Pekka Rinne from the Predators.
Yeah, and I think that Vasilevsky season was kind of kind of like Shesterkin last year. He was a shoe in, so he
Yeah.
just was so dominant as a goalie. So I'm
So
sorry I interrupted you a couple times. So do you want to just recap the five names really quickly?
So the five names from the last, going backwards, it's Shesterkin, Fleury, Hellebuck, Vasilevsky, and Rene. That takes us back to 2018. So my pick for the Vezina this year, I'm going to go with Vasilevsky. He was a finalist. I'm going to say most of these years. He's always, playing great. He's a big part of the Lightning's success. I think he's still going to have a really good year. Um, so he's the safe pick to me. Having said that, there's, goaltending is voodoo. There's always somebody who comes up with a fantastic season and, coming out of nowhere, Matt Murray. Um, so who knows? But I'm going to go with Vasilevsky.
I think that's a great pick. I definitely do think that Vasilevsky Vas now I'm screwing up the names.
No, I
Vasilevsky
think you were.
is
Yeah,
is all I think he's pretty much always going to be in the conversation, at least until he hits that point in his career where his reflexes start to slow down, or maybe the salary
injury.
cap destroys Tampa, or injury. Yeah, so I think that's a safe pick. That is not my pick though. And my pick, I'm going to I think surprise you with a dark horse. Finished fifth in the voting for the Vezina last year, and it's interesting to me, and this is going to give away who it is. It's interesting to me to realize that Pekka Rinne won 5 years ago, because I don't think of it as being that recently. I feel like it was much longer ago, a much longer time in the past. And I'm going to go with UC, Don't Call Me Juicy, Soros.
That's a good pick. That's a very good pick.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to. I think if you're talking about the most talented goaltender, he could very well be that. It's just that he doesn't have the team in front of him, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have. Uh, but I think if he can get a few breaks, he can put up better numbers than Chesterkin did last year. So
Do you think we're going to try to guess the mind of voters for the Vezina, but do you think playing in behind a stacked team like Tampa, do you think some of the voters think, yeah, he was great, but he had such a good team in front of him, while a goaltender who has good numbers but is playing for a rotten team will get more sympathy votes. Well, not sympathy vote, but will get votes because it's going to be seen as more of an accomplishment. And if I'm if I'm using the Habs as an example, there were years where Carey Price was a finalist, and you'd think, yeah, really? And he said, yeah, but he had no team in front of him, so whatever he put up was amazing in the circumstances.
Yeah. So do I think that voters factor that in? I think some do. Yes. I don't think I don't think that it takes as much precedence to most people as their statistical performance. Uh, and I also think something that can make a huge difference is making flashy saves in the minds of the voters.
Yeah,
Whether it should or not is a topic for another show, but I think that in the minds of the voters, I think number one is statistical performance. Number two is how many flashy saves they make. And then number three, I think, is the team in front of them. Actually,
yeah.
not even that. Not, I'm going to even take that back. I'm going to say number three is how well their team did, regardless of their performance. And then number four is how good the players are in front of them.
Okay, I can deal with that.
So you've got, you're giving yourself a little easier point potentially here on Vasilevsky. I think if I get Soros, I get 1.5 points.
No, that's not how it works.
It was worth a try.
Yeah.
All right, well that's I think all we have for today.
Yeah, don't forget to like the videos, subscribe, send us your comments. Don't hesitate. Let us know if you agree with some of our rapid fire picks for the Hall of Fame. Love to hear from you. And look for us very soon on TikTok.
Wow. Okay, I didn't even know that.
I just set it up
I'm ex-
today.
I'm excited.
Montreal, San Jose, 2 minutes for chirping.